Analytical Writing Assessment. AWA. Analysis of an argument. In analysis of an argument question, you must either agree or disagree with the author's argument, supporting your argument logically, and structuring the essay effectively. Next slide will give you an example. The following appeared as part of an annual report sent to stockholders by Olympic Foods, a processor of frozen foods. Over time, the costs of processing go down, because as organizations learn how to do things better, they become more efficient. In color film processing, for example, the cost of a 3 by 5 inch print fell from 50 cents for a 5-day service in 1970 to 20 cents for a 1-day service in 1984. The same principle applies to the processing of food. And since Olympic Foods will soon celebrate its 25th birthday, we can expect that our long experience will enable us to minimize costs and thus maximize profits. Discuss how well-reasoned you find this argument. In your discussion, be sure to analyze the line of reasoning and the use of evidence in the argument. For example, you may need to consider what questionable assumptions underlie the thinking and what alternative explanations or counterexamples might weaken the conclusion. You can also discuss what sort of evidence would strengthen or refute the argument, what changes in the argument would make it more logically sound, and what, if anything, would help you better evaluate its conclusion. Tips for AWA. These tips apply to both the analysis of argument and analysis of issue essays in the Analytical Writing Assessment section of the GMAT. Read the question carefully, and make sure you understand exactly what you need to do. If you misunderstand the question and then write on something off topic, you will receive a 0 as your score. Brainstorm for a couple of minutes before writing. Take 2 to 4 minutes to write down on your noteboards all your ideas and arguments, and then organize them before you start typing. Give your essay some structure. Every essay should have some sort of organization, such as an introduction, the body of the essay, and a conclusion. Watch your time. Every couple of minutes look up, and make sure you will not run out of time before you have finished the conclusion. Avoid extreme opinions. If you have extreme views on any particular issue, keep them to yourself. You do not want the B-school thinking you are some sort of nut. Write about what you know. Use your own experiences and knowledge to spice up a dull essay topic. As well, an essay with examples from the real world is much more enjoyable to read than one based solely on mere opinion and conjecture. Common fallacies in the AWA arguments. There are 5 main types of logical fallacies you will find in the arguments presented in this section. If you can identify these types, you can write a good critique of the argument. Causal argument fallacy: if A, then B. In this type of argument, the author contends that if one event occurs, the other event will thus occur. For example, the Bowler Health Club is planning to install an Olympic-sized pool in its facilities next year. This will create a great amount of interest in the community, and the club will be able to double its membership next year. What to do? The argument is if A, then B. So, imagine if A, then C and D, E, F, etc. Imagine other effects emerging from this cause. In this case, imagine the pool going way over cost and bankrupting the club. Imagine another club or the community center installing a pool and taking away business from the club, etc. Causal argument fallacy 2. If B, it must have been A. This is the flip side of the previous type of argument fallacy. In this case, we have an effect, and we are establishing a cause for it. For example, the Bowler Health Club doubled its membership this year. This is due to the installation of an Olympic-sized pool in its facilities last year, which created a great amount of interest in the community. What to do? The argument is, if B, then it must have been A. Imagine other possible causes for B. In this case, perhaps the club reduced the cost of its membership last year. Perhaps other health clubs in town went out of business. The more examples, such as these, that you can come up with, the weaker the author's argument that B was definitely caused by A. False analogy: if it worked for A, it will work for B. For example, the Acme Shoe Company increased its profits by 300% over a 5-year period, by closing its main downtown outlet, and opening smaller branches in the suburbs. The Bowler Health Club would be more profitable, if it did the same. What to do? The argument is if it worked for A, it will work for B. But the obvious criticism is that a shoe company is not the same as a health club. Come up with reasons why this plan won't work for the health club. Perhaps one large facility is more cost-effective than several smaller facilities. Perhaps the health club clientele is entirely based downtown. Use your imagination. Appeal to authority. If Steve said it would work, it will work. In this type of argument, an authority or expert is cited, or quoted in order to bolster the argument. For example, the Bowler Health Club is planning to install an Olympic-sized pool in its facilities next year. Steve says that this will create a great amount of interest in the community, and the club will be able to double its membership next year. The Bowler Health Club should build the pool. What to do? The argument is if Steve said it would work, it will work. So who is Steve? Maybe someone else would advise something completely different. You must point this out in your essay. Appeal to the past. It worked back in the 1950s, it should work today. For example, the Bowler Health Club is planning to install a jukebox in its lounge next year. This will create a great amount of interest in the community, as it did for the club back in the 1950s, and the club will be able to double its membership next year. What to do? The logic of the author's argument is it worked back in the 50s, it should work today. A jukebox? In today's world. Get real. Just because it worked in the past, doesn't mean it will work again. Times, and people, change. Point this out in your critique.